I heard the lock click. My hands froze. I stared at the door. She locked me in. My own daughter-in-law locked me inside my bedroom. I couldn't move. My heart pounded hard. This was my house. I built it with my husband. We painted these walls together. Now I was trapped. She smiled through the door. I heard her heels walk away. The sound made my stomach turn. Something was very, very wrong. I pressed my ear against the wood. I heard her laugh downstairs. A man's voice answered her. That voice wasn't my son's. My blood went cold. My name is Margaret. I'm 72 years old. I live in a small town called Maplewood. My husband died 3 years ago. His name was Daniel. We were married for 48 years. After he died, I felt so alone. The house felt too big. Too quiet, too empty. Every room reminded me of him. His chair in the living room, his coffee mug on the kitchen counter, his shoes by the door. I cried every single day. My son's name is Thomas. He's my only child. He's 35 years old. He works in finance. He's smart and kind. He looks just like his father. Same gentle eyes, same warm smile. Thomas married a woman named Vanessa. They got married 2 years ago. It was a beautiful spring wedding. White roses everywhere. Soft music playing. I cried happy tears that day. I thought I was getting a daughter, someone to talk to, someone to share my tea with. Vanessa was beautiful. She had long dark hair. It fell in perfect waves. Her smile was bright and white. Her eyes were big and brown. Everyone loved her. She was charming. She laughed at everyone's jokes. She hugged everyone warmly. She called me Mom from day one. That made me cry even more. I thought she was perfect. Thomas smiled so much around her. He held her hand constantly. He looked at her like she was magic. I was so happy for him. 6 months ago, everything changed. Thomas got a job offer overseas. He had to move to Singapore. It was a big opportunity. The company offered great money, a corner office, a better future for them both. But he was worried about me. He didn't want to leave me alone. We sat in the kitchen that afternoon. He held my hand. He said, "Mom, I don't know what to do." His eyes were full of concern. I told him to take the job. I said I'd be fine, but I wasn't sure I would be. So Vanessa offered to stay. She said she'd take care of me. She said she loved me. She said I was family. She said, "Mom, you'll never be alone." Thomas hugged her so tight. He looked at me with relief. He said, "Mom, you're in good hands." I believed him. I believed her. I was so grateful. I hugged them both. I thanked Vanessa over and over. She smiled sweetly. She said, "Don't worry about anything." The first month was nice. Vanessa cooked for me every day. She made my favorite meals: chicken soup with fresh bread, apple pie with cinnamon. She helped me water the garden. We planted tulips together. We watched old movies in the evening, black and white classics. She laughed at my jokes. She held my hand during walks. We went to the park every Sunday. We fed the ducks together. I felt loved again. I wasn't alone anymore. The house felt warm. It felt like a home again. I told Thomas on the phone. I said, "She's wonderful." He said, "I knew she would be." But then, things started to change. Small things at first. Vanessa stopped smiling as much. Her voice got colder. She didn't sit with me anymore. She stayed in her room. The door was always closed. Or she went out. She left without saying where. She came home late, sometimes after midnight. I asked her where she went. She said, "Just errands, Mom." But her eyes looked away. Her tone was sharp. I asked what kind of errands. She said, "You wouldn't understand." That hurt. One night, I woke up thirsty. It was past 2 in the morning. I went to the kitchen for water. The house was dark. I saw a light under Vanessa's door. I heard her voice. She was whispering. She was laughing softly. I stopped in the hallway. My chest felt tight. I heard a man's voice on the phone. It wasn't Thomas. I knew my son's voice. This was deeper, rougher. I froze. She said, I miss you too. She said, soon. I promise. She said, she's always in the way. My heart dropped. She hung up quickly. I heard her moving. The door opened. She saw me standing there. Her face went pale. Then she smiled. But it wasn't warm. It was sharp. Cold. She said, can't sleep, Mom? I nodded. I didn't say anything. I didn't know what to say. I went back to my room. My hands were shaking. I couldn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I called my neighbor. Her name is Linda. She's been my friend for 20 years. She lives 2 houses down. We used to walk together every morning. I told her what I heard. I whispered into the phone. I was scared Vanessa might hear. Linda listened carefully. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she sighed. She said, Margaret, be careful. She said, watch her closely. She said, trust your gut. I felt sick. I didn't want to believe it, but something felt wrong, very wrong. A week later, I found a receipt. It was in the trash. I was throwing away some tissues. I saw it sitting there. A restaurant bill, Antonio's Italian Bistro. Expensive wine. 2 meals, lobster and steak. The total was over $200. The date was last Tuesday. That was the night she said she went grocery shopping. She came home with 1 bag, just bread and milk. I stared at the receipt. My stomach twisted. Why would she lie? Who did she eat with? I started paying more attention. I watched everything. She wore perfume now. She never wore perfume before. It was strong and sweet. She dressed nicer when she went out. High heels, tight dresses, red lipstick. She checked her phone constantly, even during breakfast. She smiled at her screen, but she didn't smile at me. One day, I asked her. I said, Vanessa, is everything okay? She looked at me. Her eyes were cold. She said, why do you ask? I said, you seem different. She laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was bitter. She said, I'm fine, Mom. She said, stop worrying. But her tone made me feel small, like I was bothering her. Then one afternoon, I heard her on the phone again. I was in the living room. She was in the kitchen. The door was half open. She didn't know I could hear. She said, I can't keep doing this. She said, she's always here. She said, watching me. She said, I need to figure something out. My heart dropped. She was talking about me. I was the problem. I was in her way. That night, I called Thomas. It was hard because of the time difference, but I needed to talk to him. He answered, sounding tired. I said, Thomas, I need to tell you something. He said, what's wrong, Mom? His voice was groggy. I didn't know how to say it. I said, Vanessa seems distant. I said, she's acting strange. He sighed. He said, Mom, she's doing her best. He said, she's taking care of you. He said, it's not easy for her. He said, please don't make this harder. I felt my throat tighten. I wanted to say more, but I couldn't. I said, okay. I hung up. I felt so alone, more alone than ever. 2 days later, everything changed. I woke up feeling dizzy. My head felt heavy, like it was filled with cotton. I tried to get out of bed, but my legs felt weak. They wobbled under me. I held on to the nightstand. I called for Vanessa. She came in. She looked at me. She didn't look worried. She looked annoyed. She said, you need to rest. She said, stay in bed today. I said, I feel strange. I said, something's wrong. She said, you're just tired. She said, you didn't sleep well. She gave me a glass of water. She said, drink this. I drank it. It tasted bitter. Strange. I asked, what's in this? She said, just water and vitamins. She said, you need your strength. I drank it all. She watched me. Then she left. I woke up hours later. The room was dark. The curtains were closed. I tried to open my eyes. Everything felt blurry. My mouth was dry. My head pounded. I reached for my phone. It wasn't there. I always kept it on the nightstand. I looked around. My phone was gone. I tried to stand up. My legs wobbled. I felt so weak. I walked slowly to the door. I turned the knob. It didn't open. I pulled harder. It was locked from the outside. I felt panic rise in my chest. I banged on the door. I shouted, "Vanessa!" No answer. I banged again. My fists hurt. Nothing. I pressed my ear to the door. I heard her voice. She was laughing. She was on the phone. She said, "She's asleep." She said, "Finally, some peace." She said, "I can breathe now." Tears filled my eyes. I looked around my room. I needed help. I saw my laptop on the desk. Daniel bought it for me years ago. I opened it. The internet was off. She turned off the Wi-Fi. I tried to reconnect. Nothing worked. She changed the password. I felt trapped, completely trapped. I sat on my bed. I cried. I didn't understand. Why was she doing this? What did I do wrong? Then I remembered something. Daniel had installed a camera years ago. It was hidden in the living room, behind a small plant on the shelf. He wanted to keep an eye on things. He was always careful, always protective. The camera had cloud storage. It saved everything online. But I could also access local files. The laptop had a backup folder. Daniel showed me once. Just in case. I searched my laptop. My hands shook. I found the folder. It was labeled Home Security. I opened it. Video files appeared, days and days of footage. My heart raced. I clicked on the most recent one. It was from this morning. I saw myself in bed. Vanessa walked in. She was holding a glass. She reached into her pocket. She pulled out a small bottle. White powder. She poured it into the glass. She stirred it with a spoon, then she brought it to me. I watched myself drink it. My hands went cold. She drugged me. My own daughter-in-law drugged me. I clicked on another file. From 3 days ago, I saw Vanessa in the living room. She was dressed up, makeup perfect, hair styled. A man walked in. He was tall, dark hair slicked back, expensive suit, gold watch. He kissed her. She kissed him back. They sat on the couch. They laughed. They touched. I felt sick. I felt betrayed. I kept watching. More videos. More lies. She brought him to my house while I was locked in my room, while Thomas was working overseas, trusting her. Loving her. She was living a double life, and I was in her way. I clicked on another video. From last week, Vanessa and the man were arguing. He said, "When are you getting the house?" She said, "I'm working on it." He said, "You said it would be fast." She said, "She won't die on her own." My heart stopped. She said those words. She actually said them. He said, "Then make it happen." She said, "I will." She said, "I just need more time." I couldn't breathe. They wanted me dead. I looked at the door again. I had to get out. I had to tell someone. I searched my room. I found an old phone, Daniel's phone. I kept it in a drawer. I couldn't throw it away. It still had a little battery. I turned it on. It took forever to load. No service. The plan was canceled years ago. But it had a recording app. I opened my laptop again. I played the videos. I recorded them on the old phone. The screen. The audio. It wasn't perfect, but it was proof. Hours passed. I heard footsteps. The lock clicked. The door opened. Vanessa stood there. She looked calm. Too calm. She said, "Feeling better, Mom?" I looked at her. I said nothing. I couldn't trust my voice. She brought me a tray, soup and bread. She said, "Eat." She said, "You need your strength." I stared at the soup. I didn't trust it. She saw my face. She said, "What's wrong?" I said, "I'm not hungry." Her smile faded. She said, "You need to eat." Her voice was harder now, colder. I shook my head. She put the tray down, hard. The bowl shook. She left. She locked the door again. That night, I heard them. Vanessa and the man. They were laughing downstairs. Music played softly. I pressed my ear to the floor. I heard glasses clinking. I heard her voice. She said, "Just a little longer." She said, "Then we'll be free." She said, "We'll sell this place." She said, "We'll go to Mexico." The man laughed. He said, "I can't wait." My stomach turned. What did she mean? The next morning, Linda knocked on the door. I heard her voice from upstairs. She said, "Hi, Vanessa. Is Margaret home?" Vanessa said, "She's not feeling well." Linda said, "Oh no, what's wrong?" Vanessa said, "Just a cold." Linda said, "Can I see her?" Vanessa said, "She's resting." Linda said, "I'll just say hi quickly." Vanessa's voice got sharp. She said, "I said she's resting." Linda didn't leave. She said, "That's strange." She said, "Margaret never misses our walks." Vanessa said, "Well, she's sick." Linda said, "I'll come back tomorrow." Vanessa said, "Sure." But her tone said otherwise. I banged on the floor. I screamed Linda's name. I hit the floor with my fists. But she was too far. She didn't hear me. I heard the front door close. I cried again. That afternoon, I got an idea. I wrote a note. I used an old notebook. I wrote, "Help, locked in, Vanessa lying, call police." I folded it small. I waited by the window. I opened it quietly. I saw the mailman walking by. I threw the note. It landed on the grass. The mailman didn't see it. He kept walking. My heart sank. But then a boy walked by. He was maybe 10 years old. He had a red backpack. He was walking his dog. He saw the note. He picked it up. He read it. He looked up. He saw me in the window. I put my finger to my lips. "Please," I mouthed. "Please help." He looked scared, but he nodded. He ran. An hour later, I heard a knock. Loud, firm, a man's voice. He said, "Police." "Open the door." My heart jumped. I heard Vanessa panic. She said, "What's going on?" The officer said, "We got a call." She said, "A call? About what?" He said, "About a woman locked inside." Vanessa laughed, but it sounded fake, forced. She said, "That's ridiculous." She said, "My mother-in-law is resting. The officer said, we need to check." She said, "Fine." She said, "But this is embarrassing." I heard footsteps coming upstairs. The lock turned. The door opened. 2 officers stood there. One was a man. One was a woman. The woman looked at me. She said, "Ma'am, are you okay?" I started crying. I said, "She locked me in." I said, "She's been drugging me." I said, "Please help me." Vanessa's face went white. She said, "That's not true." She said, "She's confused," she said. "She's old," she said. "She forgets things." The officer looked at her, then looked at me. He said, "We'll need to investigate." I told them everything. I showed them the laptop. I showed them the videos. The officer watched in silence. His jaw tightened. His face got serious. He looked at Vanessa. He said, "You need to come with us." She started crying. Fake tears. She said, "I didn't do anything." She said, "She's lying." She said, "I've been taking care of her," but the proof was right there, on the screen, clear as day. They took her away. I sat on my bed. I was shaking. Linda came in. She hugged me tight. She said, "I knew something was wrong." She said, "That's why I called the police." She said, "I told them you'd never miss our walks." I said, "Thank you." I said it over and over. I couldn't stop crying. The next few days were a blur. The police investigated. They searched the house. They found the pills she used, sleeping medication, strong doses, prescription strength. They found text messages between her and the man. His name was Marcus. He had a criminal record, fraud.theft, identity theft. They talked about money, about the house, about getting rid of me. They used those exact words, getting rid of her. My heart broke. She wanted me gone, dead. Thomas came home. He flew back immediately. It took him 18 hours. He walked into the house. He looked lost. His eyes were red. He said, "Mom, I'm so sorry." He hugged me. He cried. I cried too. He said, "I should have listened." He said, "I should have believed you." I said, "You didn't know." I said, "She fooled all of us." But I saw the guilt in his eyes. Vanessa was arrested. She was charged with elder abuse, with drugging, with fraud, with conspiracy. Marcus was arrested too. They found his fingerprints all over the house, in my husband's office, in the safe. She gave him access. She gave him everything. Weeks passed. I started feeling better. Linda visited every day. She brought me soup. She brought me flowers. We talked for hours. Thomas stayed with me. He took time off work. He helped me heal. We talked a lot. We cried together. We planted new flowers in the garden. Daniel's favorite, yellow roses. I felt lighter. Slowly. The trial happened. It was 6 months later. I had to testify. I sat in that courtroom. I looked at Vanessa. She didn't look at me. She stared at the floor. Her lawyer tried to defend her. He said she was under pressure. He said Marcus manipulated her. He said she loved me, but the videos didn't lie. The pills didn't lie. The texts didn't lie. She was guilty. The judge sentenced her. 5 years in prison. Marcus got 7. Thomas stayed with me for a while. He canceled his contract overseas. He found a job nearby. He said, "I'm not leaving you again." He said, "Family comes first." We rebuilt our bond. We talked every evening. We cooked together. We laughed again. I started feeling like myself. I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't alone. One evening, I sat in my room. I looked at the door. It was open. No lock, no fear. I walked to the living room. I looked at the camera. That little hidden camera saved my life. "Thank you, Daniel," I whispered. I felt him with me. I thought about everything, how kind she seemed. How fake it all was. She said she loved me. She called me Mom. But love doesn't lock doors. Love doesn't drug. Love doesn't lie. Love doesn't plan murder. I learned that. The hard way. I also learned something else. Trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't ignore the signs. Don't stay quiet. Speak up. Ask for help. You are not a burden. You are not crazy. You are not alone. I'm still here. I'm still standing. I rebuilt my peace. I rebuilt my life. Thomas visits every weekend now. He brings his new partner. Her name is Claire. She's kind. She's real. She listens. She cares. I'm careful now, but I'm not broken. I go to therapy now. I talk about what happened. I cry sometimes. But I also smile, I laugh, I garden, I bake pies again. Linda and I walk every morning. We feed the ducks. We talk about life, about healing, about trust. If you ever feel trapped, if someone makes you feel small, if something doesn't feel right, trust yourself. Reach out. There are people who care. There are people who will listen. You deserve safety. You deserve love. Real love, not fake smiles, not empty words, real, honest, true love. Vanessa tried to take my home. She tried to take my voice. She tried to take my life, but she didn't win. I did, because I fought back, because I didn't stay silent, because I believed I was worth saving, and I was. The camera she forgot became my proof. The boy who picked up my note became my hero. Linda became my strength. Thomas became my healing, and I became my own protector. Now I wake up every morning. I open my curtains, I see the sun, I hear the birds, I drink my tea in peace, and I smile because I'm free, truly free. Some people asked me later. They said, "How did you survive?" I said, "I refused to give up." They said, "Weren't you scared?" I said, "Every single day." They said, "How did you stay strong?" I said, "I remembered who I was. I'm Margaret. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a survivor, and no one can take that from me. I also want to say this. Evil doesn't always look evil. Sometimes it smiles. Sometimes it brings you flowers. Sometimes it calls you mom, but the truth always comes out, and justice can still win. I look at Daniel's picture every night. I say, thank you. Thank you for the camera. Thank you for protecting me. Even after you were gone, I feel him with me, always. Thomas asked me once. He said, Mom, do you hate her? I thought about it. I said, no. He looked surprised. I said, I pity her. I said, she chose greed over love. I said, she chose lies over truth. I said, that's a sad life. He nodded. He understood. I forgave her, not for her, for me, because holding hate is heavy, and I've carried enough weight. This is my story. I share it so you know you are not alone. You are not weak. You are not worthless. You are strong. You are brave. You are loved. If this story touched you, please share it. If you know someone who needs to hear this, send it to them. If you've been through something similar, I see you. You survived. You matter. Your voice matters. Don't let anyone silence you. Don't let anyone lock you away. Don't let anyone make you feel small. You are powerful. You are important. You are enough. I'm 72. Years old. I lived through war. I lived through loss. I lived through betrayal, and I'm still here, still breathing, still fighting, still loving. My garden is blooming. Now, the yellow roses are beautiful. The tulips are bright. The air smells like hope, and I am finally at peace. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing me. Thank you for being here with love and respect. Until next time.